Okay, hi everybody. Last week we talked about how the spies had escaped from Jericho and they went back to tell Joshua everything that they had seen and everything they had done and all about Rahab. Well, Joshua was happy to hear the news. The people were happy to hear the news. They were excited about their chance to go into the promised land at last. There was just one problem. There was a river, the Jordan River, that was between them and the promised land, and they needed to get across it, but it was flooding season, and the river was about a mile wide, and there was approximately 2 million people that had to get across this river. So how was this going to happen? Well, God gave Joshua some instructions, and so Joshua passed on the information to the people. He said, get your food ready because we are going to go. You all need to keep your eye on the priests that are carrying the Ark of the Covenant. Now remember, they had to carry it a special way with these poles or staffs or whatever you want to call them. And it was covered because it was God's special Ark of the Covenant. And so as the people watched the priests and they went towards the water, as soon as their feet touched the water stopped flowing and it started to build up as though it was a dam, and the ground was dry, and the priests went to the middle of the river and stood there, and all the people went across. I'm sure the children were like, look mommy, look at the water, and they went across probably as quickly as they could, and they were so excited about what was going on. Now Joshua had given instructions to 12 men, one from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, to grab a stone from the middle of the river as they went through, a big stone, a memento of what had happened. And so as soon as everyone got through, then the priests came and left the river. As soon as their feet were on dry land, then the water went rushing down again. And when they got to the other side, there was these 12 stones, and God had told them to put them in a big pile as a monument for what had happened. Remember, God wants us to remember the things that He has done. It helps our faith to grow and be strong, especially in times when we're discouraged. Now, He also said that when these people, their children, saw the big pile of stones, they would say, what is that? What's that for? And then the parents could explain to the children why the stones were there and what they represented, so that they also could grow in their faith and understand what God had done for them. Well, after the people had gone across and set up camp in Gilgal, Joshua went for a walk to look at the city of Jericho, the first city that they were going to be in battle against. And as he was walking along looking at this city, he saw someone. And he didn't know who it was. He didn't recognize them, but they had a sword. And so he asked them, are you for us or against us? And the man said, I am neither. I am the captain of the Lord's hosts. And Joshua immediately fell down to worship this person. And the man said, take off your shoes, for you are on holy ground. And remember, that's what God told Moses when he came to the burning bush. Take off your shoes, you're on holy ground. And that's something else that we need to remember. When we're remembering the love of God and His care for us, we also need to remember that He is magnificent and worthy of respect and worship. So Joshua took off his shoes and listened to what the Lord had to say. And he told him his new battle plan for this city of Jericho. He said, take the men of war with their swords and have them line up to walk around the city of Jericho. Then behind them will be priests with trumpets. Behind them will be the priests with the Ark of the Covenant. And behind them will be more soldiers. And they will march around the city of Jericho once a day for 6 days. Now, mind you, when they were marching, they were not to say anything. No noise, just marching. Only the priests would blow their trumpets. That would be the only noise besides the sound of the marching feet. I'm sure that the people of Jericho were watching over the walls, wondering what was going on. Remember, they were already afraid. Rahab had told them that all the people in Jericho were already afraid. And so they followed God's instructions and did this for 6 days. On the 7th day, they were to go around the city 7 times. And then when Joshua gave the signal, the trumpets would sound and all the soldiers would shout with a very loud shout. So they did this. And as you know, the walls, those thick, strong, tall walls that even had houses inside of them, those thick walls fell down at the sound of the voices and the trumpets on the 7th day. There was only one section of the wall that stayed standing, and you know which one it was? It was the section with the red cord hanging out the window, the home of Rahab. So she and her family were saved, just as the Israelites had promised. God always keeps his promises, and so they were saved and came to live with the Israelites. Now, a little side note here, Rahab is one of the only women in the genealogy of Christ in the New Testament. So she became a very special woman. Well, God had given a very specific instruction to Joshua and the Israelites. He said, when you take the city of Jericho, you are not to take anything out of it for yourself. Everything is for me. He said, all the gold and the silver I want you to bring into my tabernacle to be used for the worship in the tabernacle. No one is allowed to take anything. Well, unfortunately, there was one man out of all those soldiers. There was one man who, as he was looking through the ruins of Jericho, he saw a beautiful garment. Now remember, back then, people had to work for a whole year, sometimes often, to get one set of clothes. And that would have been just regular casual clothes. This was something special. Babylon was a beautiful, rich city. And so this garment was a beautiful, rich garment. Also, there was a pile of silver and a piece of gold, a big chunk of gold. And this man saw this and he coveted it. And when nobody was looking, he quickly grabbed it and stuffed it somewheres in his bag and took it home with him. And he buried it under his tent, but nobody knew, nobody saw, except for the one who always sees everything, who knows what we think and what we say and what we do, even when no one else does. He thought it was a secret. Well, the Battle of Jericho was a success, and the children of Israel were feeling pretty good. They had come across the Jordan River, seen a great miracle of God. They had seen another miracle of God when the walls of Jericho fell down. They were in the promised land. In fact, when they came to the promised land, there was food there for them to eat, and so they never ate manna again after that. So their life was completely changed. Remember, they were tired of the manna, so this was exciting for them to get some new food to eat and to know that soon they would have a place to live of their very own. So they had more battles to fight, and Joshua sent 2 spies to the next place. It was a small place north of Jericho called Ai. And so he did the usual thing. He sent a couple spies out to check it out, and they came back and they said, oh, you know what? Ai is a pretty small place. There's not much going on there. I think we only need, we don't need the whole army. We only need some of the army. Let's see here. We need, well, I seem to have lost track. Oh, there we go. 2,000 or 3,000 soldiers, not the whole army. Just 2,000 or 3,000 is all we'll need to beat this city. It's really small. I think we'll be fine. And so Joshua mobilized 2,000 or 3,000 soldiers, and they went on to Ai, but something bad happened. It didn't take long for them to realize they were in serious trouble. Those soldiers in Ai were very strong and set them to their heels really quickly. In fact, a number of them were even killed. There was 36 Israelite soldiers were killed in the battle, and they had to run away from Ai. I'm sure that Ai had been afraid when they came, because Jericho was, and it was a huge city. So they were probably afraid when they saw the Israelites coming, but then after they won, they were like, yes, we did it. Those unbeatable Israelites, we beat them. This is great. They were feeling strong and courageous at that point. Israel was not feeling strong and courageous. They were devastated. They were so scared. They thought, what on earth just happened? I thought that God was going to take care of us. I thought that this was just a shoo-in. This was just going to happen easy peasy. What on earth happened? Joshua was so upset. He went to the tabernacle, and like they did back then, he ripped his clothes and he put the dust on his head, and he fell down in front of the altar and he prayed all day long till evening. He stayed there wondering what happened. Oh Lord, what has happened? How could this happen? And finally at evening, God said to him very clearly, obviously, he said, get up. There is sin in the camp and you need to deal with it now. And so he gave him instructions for something to do the next morning. So the next morning, all of the Israelites got up. I'm sure they were wondering what on earth was going on. There was fear in their hearts. They wanted to find out what had happened. And so God told Joshua to separate the people, to bring forth, like he told him which tribe to bring out. And it was the tribe of Judah that he pointed out to Joshua. That was at fault for what had happened. Then he wanted him to take of the leaders, the main families in the tribe of Judah, and one family was chosen. And then out of that family, one man was chosen, and his name was Achan. And of course, Achan knew all along what was going on. I'm sure as soon as his tribe was chosen, even if he wasn't positive before that, I'm sure if the ball was dropping at that point. He knew what was going to happen. And finally, his name was chosen. He was pointed out by God as being the one at fault for everything that had happened. And Joshua said to him, you need to confess. You need to tell your sin. And so at last, Achan told his sin, and he told what had happened. He said he had seen the Babylonian garment. He had seen the 100 pieces of gold. He had seen, silver. He had seen the chunk of gold, and he had coveted it, and he had taken it for himself, even though God told them not to take anything. He told them where it was hidden, buried under his tent. So Joshua sent some men to go look under his tent, and sure enough, there they were. They brought them out, and then Achan had to be punished. And so he and all his family died that day. And they piled up a pile of stones in memory of it so that people would remember what had happened. And the people were really sad. It was a very sad thing. All for a very small, I'm sure when he saw the garment and the silver and gold, it looked like everything in the world. But when it got unburied from under his tent, I'm sure it looked like a pitiful, pitiful pile of nothingness compared to the death of the Israelite soldiers, the fear that everyone felt, and the punishment that would have to be had because of all of that. So it was a very sad day. Then God told Joshua and the Israelites, Now you do not need to be afraid. I will be with you. You can go to Ai and you will have the victory. And so Joshua took what he said, they're going to be really strong now. They have felt victory. You're going to need the entire army. A few thousand will not do it. You need everybody out there. And so they mobilized the entire Israelite army. They went against Ai, and Joshua had a battle plan whereby he sent a bunch of his army in behind the city. They snuck in when no one was looking. A whole bunch of them went behind the city. And he had some on one side of the valley, some on the other side of the valley. And then the rest of the army came walking up the valley as though they were the only ones coming to battle. And Ai saw them coming and they were like, here we go again. We're going to do it again. And so when they saw them coming, they ran out of the city, down the hill. They ran out of the city, you can't see very well, to come and do battle against the Israelites again. But as they all ran out of the city, Joshua gave a signal, and the men that were in behind the city came out from behind, and they ran up towards the city and they set it on fire. When the men who were coming to do battle in the valley turned around, they could see their city was on fire, and they knew that they were in serious trouble this time. It was a trick. And sure enough, God gave the Israelites the victory that day over Ai. And this time, when they had the victory over this city, they were allowed to keep anything they wanted out of this city. God allowed them to take as much as they wanted. If Achan had only waited, but he didn't. All the Israelites were able to take whatever they found for themselves. And so that is the story of what happened with Ai. And we will go on to find out more about Joshua next week. Thanks.